police found Hackman and his wife dead in their New Mexico home. Investigators say Hackman died a week after his wife.
Gene Hackman's death has left the world in shock, but it's the heartbreaking details emerging about his final years that have truly captivated the public. His life, which once revolved around the bright lights of Hollywood, ended quietly, far from the glitz and glamour. Just weeks after the discovery of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa's bodies in their Santa Fe mansion, new revelations are shedding light on what their home was like in those final moments. And it's not the image one would expect for a man of Hackman's caliber. A maid who had stayed silent up until now has finally spoken out, and the details are shocking. The couple's secluded home, which was valued at $3.5 million, was reportedly in an appalling state before their deaths. No one could have predicted the way things would end for the two of them, especially not in a way that paints such a sad picture of their last months together. In fact, the once beautiful home, known for its elegant furnishings, was described as a mess, with dog poop on the floor and dust accumulating everywhere. But it wasn't just the state of the house that had people questioning what really happened. The tragic condition of their beloved dog, Zinna, who passed away alongside them, has raised further concerns. Authorities later confirmed that Zinna's death was due to dehydration and starvation, a sad reflection of how dire the situation had become. So what exactly happened to the legendary actor, his wife, and their home? Why were Gene and Betsy's final days so unrecognizable from the life they once lived? Let's dive deep into the tragic and mysterious last chapters of Gene Hackman's life, Hackman's final years. Gene Hackman's retreat from the public spotlight in his later years speaks volumes about his desire for privacy and peace after decades of fame. Having achieved enormous success in Hollywood, the actor, alongside his wife, Betsy Arakawa, chose to live a quiet, secluded life in a gated community in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hackman's decision to leave the Hollywood scene and embrace this isolation may have been a necessary step in finding comfort and tranquility after years of being in the public eye. His fame and recognition often carried a heavy burden, and it seems that in his retirement, he sought solace away from the prying eyes of fans, journalists, and the entertainment industry. Those who lived nearby the couple noted that the Hackmans were notoriously private, with few interactions with neighbors. The couple kept to themselves, reinforcing the sense of isolation they seemed to crave. Many described the couple's life as a quiet existence, marked by minimal socialization with the outside world. As one neighbor put it, "They have a gate, and we have a gate, and we just have never even seen each other." This encapsulates the essence of their life, self-imposed separation from the world around them. The Hackmans' decision to live in such a secluded manner also reflected their preference for keeping their affairs and lifestyle away from public scrutiny, allowing them to enjoy the last years of Hackman's life without the constant attention that fame typically brings. However, while the Hackmans appeared content in their retreat, reports suggest that their home, a representation of their isolation, was not as pristine as one might expect from a successful actor. According to various sources, the house was in a state of disrepair, a sharp contrast to the lavish homes that Gene Hackman could have afforded at the height of his career. The furniture, once elegant, had become worn, and the house was described as shocking in its neglect. This wasn't simply a case of the home being somewhat untidy, but rather one where the maintenance had been severely overlooked, leaving behind a sense of decay. Many close to the Hackmans reported that routine household chores had seemingly fallen by the wayside. The absence of a housekeeper, which was once a fixture in their lives, became evident as the years passed. The couple's living conditions seemed to deteriorate as the house lacked the usual care and attention typically afforded to a home of its caliber. The refrigerator was described as nearly empty, save for some forgotten leftovers, a stark contrast to the lavish meals one might expect in the home of a former Hollywood star. It seemed as if Gene Hackman, who had once enjoyed the comforts of wealth and a busy career, had gradually moved into a state of neglect, both in terms of his living environment and perhaps his broader engagement with life. This state of disarray in Hackman's home paints a picture of a man who, in his later years, may have struggled with the passage of time. For someone who had lived a life filled with the highs of Hollywood fame, awards, and recognition, the sense of isolation and neglect in his home could suggest a deeper personal shift. As Hackman withdrew from public life, it is possible that his home, once a symbol of his success, became a physical manifestation of his detachment from the world and even from the life he had once known. While Hackman's decision to withdraw from public life and live in isolation may have been driven by a desire for peace and anonymity, the physical state of his home may also reflect the broader emotional and psychological toll that comes with such a retreat. The neglect of his surroundings could point to a deepening sense of withdrawal or even a loss of motivation to maintain the lifestyle he had once worked so hard to achieve. It could suggest that the quiet life he sought was, in some ways, a lonely one, where even the simplest routines were abandoned. In many ways, Hackman's final years serve as a testament to the complexities of aging and retirement, especially for someone who had lived so much of their life in the public eye. While Hackman might have found solace in his seclusion, the disarray of his home may also reflect the toll of stepping away from the world he had known. It is a quiet, isolated existence that contrasts sharply with the glitz and glamour of his Hollywood past. It shows how, in the final years of life, even the most successful individuals may seek peace, but at times, that peace comes with unintended consequences, such as the neglect of both their personal surroundings and perhaps themselves. The deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, shocked those who had once known them. The couple had withdrawn from public life years before their tragic passing, and their seclusion in Santa Fe had made it difficult for neighbors to know what was happening in their lives. When their absence became noticeable, neighborhood security decided to conduct a welfare check. The authorities soon discovered the couple's bodies in their home, and the tragic news spread quickly. Betsy Hackman, at the age of 65, was found to have died from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS, a rare and often fatal disease contracted through contact with rodents or their droppings. This disease is particularly deadly because it can cause severe respiratory issues, and its symptoms are often mistaken for common flu or cold. HPS is rare, but its occurrence has been recorded in certain regions of the United States, and New Mexico, where the Hackmans lived, is one of the areas that have seen cases. The revelation that Betsy had passed from such a devastating illness brought a sense of shock and disbelief to those who had been unaware of the danger that lurked in the couple's home. While authorities were able to pinpoint the cause of Betsy's death, the circumstances surrounding Gene's passing were more unclear. Medical professionals speculated that Gene, 95, might have died a week later, around February 18th, though the exact time of death was difficult to determine. There were several potential contributing factors to his death, but heart disease was believed to be the most likely cause. Hackman's health had been in decline for years, and he had been battling Alzheimer's disease, which further complicated matters. Alzheimer's, a neurodegenerative condition that affects memory and cognitive function, meant that Gene likely did not fully comprehend the situation around him. In an incredibly heart-wrenching turn of events, it was suggested that Gene might not have even realized that his wife had passed away. His advanced Alzheimer's may have prevented him from processing the death of Betsy, leaving him in a state of confusion or unawareness during those final days. This added a tragic layer to an already devastating story. The couple, who had lived in seclusion for so long, were now separated in death, and it seemed that Gene, in his final moments, was left with little understanding of what had transpired. The combination of Alzheimer's disease, the unexpected nature of Betsy's death, and the couple's reclusive lifestyle created a deeply sad narrative. Gene's isolation, compounded by his cognitive decline, made it nearly impossible for him to understand or even react to the loss of his beloved wife. For those who knew them, the tragic deaths felt even more poignant because of the sense of detachment that had defined their final years. It was as though the isolation they had chosen, while peaceful, also became a prison of sorts, and the loss of each other in such an abrupt and confusing way was a cruel conclusion to their quiet lives. Gene Hackman, once one of Hollywood's greatest stars, and Betsy, his devoted wife, had both found a semblance of peace in their secluded life. But their deaths, especially under such tragic and mysterious circumstances, left those who cared about them with questions that would never be fully answered. The story of their final years is one marked by solitude, illness, and an eerie sense of quiet tragedy. The discovery of Zinna, the Hackmans' loyal dog, alongside their bodies, added a heartbreaking and chilling element to an already tragic story. Zinna, who had likely been a beloved companion for years, had suffered an unimaginable fate in her final days. According to reports from the New Mexico Department of Agriculture's veterinary lab, it was determined that Zinna had died from dehydration and starvation. The condition of her remains, which showed signs of partial mummification, suggested that she had been left without food or water for an extended period. This revealed a stark and disturbing reality. The Hackmans had become so isolated and overwhelmed by their own declining health that they were unable to care for the pet that had been their faithful companion. The fact that Zinna had been found in such a dire state only deepens the mystery surrounding the couple's final days. How could the situation have reached such an extreme? Gene Hackman, with his advanced Alzheimer's disease, would have been severely impaired in his ability to care for himself, let alone a pet. His cognitive decline likely made it difficult for him to recognize his own needs, and it's possible that in his confusion he was unable to comprehend the situation with Zinna. Betsy, on the other hand, had passed away from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a deadly illness that causes severe respiratory distress. Her own battle with the disease might have left her too weak or incapacitated to attend to the needs of their dog. The lack of intervention from neighbors or anyone in the community is another painful aspect of this tragedy. The couple had lived in relative isolation, and while they were known to be private individuals, one must wonder if there were no signals or concerns raised by those nearby. Did anyone check in on them during the final days? Given their reclusive lifestyle, it is plausible that the couple had become invisible to those around them, and as a result, there was no one to recognize the desperate situation unfolding within their home. The discovery of Zinna's condition raises troubling questions about how unnoticed their suffering had gone and how little help had come their way in the final stretch of their lives. The presence of Zinna's body, so cruelly left to suffer alongside her deceased owners, adds an additional layer of sadness to the overall story. It serves as a stark reminder of the profound isolation that can occur when a person or family retreats from the world. The Hackmans, once a couple who had thrived in the spotlight of Hollywood, had reached a point where their isolation and physical decline led to an unforgivable lapse in the care of those around them, including their dog. The tragic fate of Zinna serves as a stark symbol of the couple's descent into seclusion and the neglect they endured in their final days. It also brings to light the often overlooked consequences of extreme isolation and the toll it can take on both human and animal companions. Zinna's suffering is a tragic reminder of the vulnerability that comes with aging and the potential dangers of living without a support network. The loss of Zinna, once a symbol of comfort and companionship, magnifies the overall tragedy of the Hackmans' final days, revealing just how deep the couple's isolation and decline had truly been. The discovery of Zinna's condition added an even deeper layer of heartbreak to the already tragic circumstances surrounding the deaths of Gene and Betsy Hackman. The couple's loyal dog, found alongside their bodies, had endured a cruel fate in its final days. According to the New Mexico Department of Agriculture's veterinary lab, Zinna likely died from dehydration and starvation, her remains showing signs of partial mummification. This indicated that the dog had been left without food or water for a prolonged period, an unimaginable way for any pet to suffer. The fact that Zinna had been found in such a state only intensified the tragedy of Jean and Betsy's deaths. The couple, who had lived in seclusion for years, were unable to provide for their beloved companion during their final moments. Jean, suffering from Alzheimer's disease, was likely unable to comprehend the need to care for Zinna, while Betsy's own fatal illness, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, likely rendered her too weak to attend to her responsibilities. In their isolated home, the pet's needs went unnoticed, and the couple, overwhelmed by their own health crises, could not provide the care Zinna required. The situation raises troubling questions. How could such dire circumstances unfold without anyone noticing? The couple had lived quietly in their secluded Santa Fe home, but surely someone, neighbors, friends, or even family, must have realized that something was amiss. The Hackmans' extreme privacy may have led to their withdrawal from the community, but it also meant that no one intervened during those final days. The absence of outside help in such a critical situation emphasizes the risks of isolation, particularly for those who can no longer care for themselves or their pets. The tragic loss of Zinna not only highlights the physical neglect the couple and their dog endured, but also the emotional toll of their reclusive lifestyle. The dog's suffering serves as a haunting reminder of the consequences of extreme isolation. In the end, Zinna's death underscores the cruel reality that the Hackmans, in their final days, were left without the support they so desperately needed, the will and what's next for Jean's fortune. As the dust settles on this tragic story, the focus shifts to what happens next. Jean Hackman's fortune, which is reportedly worth $80 million, has become a point of contention. Betsy Arakawa, Jean's wife, was the successor trustee of his trust, and she would have been the primary beneficiary of his estate. However, this raises concerns about the inheritance of Jean's 3 children from a previous marriage, as it remains unclear if they were left anything in his will. The possibility of a legal battle over Jean's wealth looms large. Betsy's own will designated her assets to a trust intended for charitable organizations and the settlement of medical debts. But it remains to be seen how the rest of Jean's estate will be divided. With no children together and no clear answer on what was left for his 3 children, this is one chapter of Jean Hackman's life that has left many questions unanswered. A family's tribute and the end of an era. After their deaths, Jean's daughter, Leslie, paid a touching tribute to Betsy, calling her a dedicated caretaker who had kept Jean alive during his final years. She took very, very good care of him and was always looking out for his health, Leslie said. The couple's marriage, which lasted for 34 years, was a strong one, and despite the tragic end, Leslie emphasized how wonderful their relationship was. Jean's daughter also expressed gratitude for the care and devotion Betsy showed to her father, even as his health deteriorated. This, perhaps, is the most heart-wrenching part of this entire story. What is often overlooked is the love and commitment that defined Jean and Betsy's relationship. Their final days were marked by illness and solitude, but their bond seemed unbreakable, and this enduring love will remain a defining part of their legacy. Jean Hackman's passing has been surrounded by mystery, but new revelations are shedding light on his final days. Recently, Jean's maid broke her silence, offering shocking details about the state of his home in the weeks leading up to his death. The $3.5 million Santa Fe ranch, once filled with beautiful furniture and art, was reportedly a mess. With no housekeeper in place, the home was found in disarray, with dog waste on the floor and nothing in the fridge. Tragically, their beloved dog Zinna was also found deceased, likely due to dehydration and starvation. Further updates have revealed that Jean's wife, Betsy, passed away first from hantavirus syndrome, and Jean likely followed soon after. This tragic story raises many questions. What truly happened in those final days? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this unfolding story.